When Oklahomans head to the polls in November, they won't find any third-party candidates on the ballot. While there has been a steady rise in registered independents and efforts continue to ease the state's ballot access laws, the choice in most races will come down to candidates from one of two major parties.
More than 2 million Oklahomans are registered to vote in November's general election, and the overwhelming majority of those identify themselves as either Republican or Democratic. Democrats retain a slight majority, but the two parties are closer to parity than at any time since the Election Board began keeping statistics. State Election Board Secretary Paul Zurich says it's a trend that's been going on for decades.
Well, if you look back at the last 20 or 25 years, and especially since the National Voter Registration Act went into effect in the mid-1990s, you've seen both independents and Republicans gain as an overall percentage of voters in the state.
In 1960, the state was solidly Democratic, with Democrats making up 82% of registered voters, while Republicans comprised 17.6% and independents just 0.4%. Compare that to the latest numbers, which show Democrats at 43.8%, Republicans at 43.6%, and independents at 12.6%. State Republican Party Chair Dave Weston believes the GOP is on its way to becoming the majority party in Oklahoma.
I think there's somewhere in the neighborhood of about around a 16,000 registration margin within the state, and at some point in time we anticipate that will overtake the Democrats in that category as well.
Trav Robertson is the executive director of the Oklahoma Democratic Party. Robertson admits Republicans have done a good job of registering new voters, but he's not ready to concede the state to the GOP.
Oklahoma is not a Republican state. It's an independent state that trends Republican because we as Democrats failed to put together a clear, concise message, but most importantly, we became complacent.
Robertson believes the rise in minority voters will swing momentum back to the Democrats. University of Oklahoma political science professor Keith Gaddy agrees those demographic trends pose challenges for the Republican Party.
Republicans will pick up again for a few more years, but if they can't start converting African American, Hispanic, and Asian American voters over to the GOP, the long-term demographic trend in the state should shift back towards the Democrats.
Whether it's Republican or Democratic, the parties remain the driving force in Oklahoma politics.
If you want to run for public office, you have to go through the party. The parties control the ballot position. And that means that if you have ambition, you have to go through the party to get on the ballot, and you have to be on the ballot to win.
Getting on the ballot is not easy if you're not a member of one of the major parties. Under Oklahoma law, a third party would have had to submit a petition with more than 66,000 signatures to earn a place on this year's ballot. Weston argues that's not unreasonable.
If you're going to be viable enough, then go organize enough people together to where you can organize as a party and get your candidates on the ballot.
But should that threshold be lowered for allowing those other candidates on the ballot?
I think they're just fine where they are.
Robertson says Democrats aren't necessarily opposed to loosening ballot access, but stops short of endorsing a change.
We would meet with those individuals in the legislature who are forced or tasked with making that decision and let them know that we believe everybody should have access to the ballot box, and everybody has a right in a democracy to be a candidate for office.
Third-party candidates are not prohibited from filing for office, but they do have to run as independents. Gaddy says that puts them at a disadvantage since there's no information shortcut to identify what an independent candidate stands for.
An independent could be a communist, they could be a libertarian, they could be a states' rights individual, they could be a nationalist, they could be a member of the Green Party. So independent isn't enough to tell you what these people are about.
The last time any candidate ran as a member of a recognized third party was 14 years ago, when the Libertarian Party was listed on the presidential ballot. A measure to reduce the number of signatures needed to get on the ballot was introduced in the legislature last session, but never came to the floor for a vote.